Welcome, and nice to see you all again. And this is going to be another half-hour edition of the Enterprise Rent-A-Car Bite-Size webinar series. We're going to be looking at a really important topic today, and we're going to be talking about how to use non-academic activities to develop your soft skills. Now, this is really important, especially after the 2/3 years we've all been through with the pandemic, and maybe those more limited opportunities to develop those soft skills. So we're here to help, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by one of my colleagues from over the last couple of years from one of our key higher education university providers, Jess. So Jess, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jamie. So hi everyone, my name is Jess and I'm a careers consultant at Swansea University. I specialise in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences, so provide advice and guidance to the students across the faculty with part-time jobs, internships, graduate jobs, placements. So hopefully this session will help you all today with the guidance that I can bring from my experience.
Fantastic, Jess, and it really great to have you here. And I know from working with you over the last sort of 2 years that we've had some great success stories where we've been able to help empower students to really showcase their soft skills and help themselves secure placements, graduate roles, or perhaps just improve their overall confidence and employability. So yeah. We're really hopeful today that we're going to have a really great session and cover some great topics. So introductions are done. My name's Jamie. I think I did say that. Jamie Wharfe. I'm talent acquisition specialist at Enterprise, and I cover all things employability and graduate roles. So let's move on to the crux of today's session. So I guess it's really important to define the difference between hard and soft skills. So let's start with those hard skills. So hard skills are often quantifiable skills that you can get accreditation for, or they're certifiable. Things such as degrees, courses, IT qualifications, and those extra sort of courses and skills you can learn. They're often very definable. Someone can often ask a candidate, okay, so do you have IT skills? And the response might be, yes, I've got Excel qualifications and I've done an IT and computing degree. Somebody might be able to say, do you have any marketing skills? Yes, I've got a marketing degree. I've got a degree in a certain discipline. So it really is quite easy to showcase those skills. And I think often we kind of take it for granted that these are the only skills that employers look for in candidates, because we look at those job qualifications or the job specifications, and often we see that you are required to have a degree, you're required to have certain levels of educational qualifications, and that's the starting point. But Jess, as we know, it doesn't just start or stop there. So in your experience, I mean, what sort of proportion would you put as a sort of estimate in terms of what employers really look for past those hard skills versus the soft skills?
Yeah, I would say like 90% of employers will want those soft skills as well as those hard skills. So it should, you may have the degree, you may have those technical skills, which is brilliant. You put the hard work in to achieve those kind of concrete skills, as Jamie mentioned. But actually, if you can't, articulate, or work in a team, and we'll go on to discuss soft skills in a bit more detail in a minute, but that makes a massive impact when you go to your interviews and you do your application processes, or you start on your first day in your new job. That all creates a really good first impression. So hard skills, soft skills, they go hand in hand. They're both important, but make sure that you are kind of continuing to develop both and not just focusing on one specific area when you're doing your job search.
Yeah, that's great advice, Jess, and these are topics that we've worked upon together on joint projects. And often when we talk to students, Jess, we often say to them, when you apply for a position, there's going to be another, say if there's 100 applicants, there's going to be another 99 people other than yourself that have got a degree, that have probably got some good education background, but what is it that differentiates you from the next person? And that's the bit we really want to help you with today. So let's look at soft skills. So soft skills are kind of the opposite to hard skills. Soft skills are often quite hard to certify. They're not very certifiable. You don't get a degree for being a great communicator. You don't get a certificate to say that you're great in collaborative situations. Soft skills are often viewed more as social skills, skills which we can sort of learn and develop in social situations. Often soft skills are portrayed through our own attitudes, and often soft skills, again, can be shown and sort of exercised and delivered through our own management of situations, be that a situation that we're presented with or we face. So it really is a totally different set of skills. Now, what I'd like to do is bring Jess in just to have a little dig in at some of these soft skills. Now, these 5 soft skills, we've taken these from the ISC 2021 survey, and these skills are recognised as skills that are desirable to future employers. So communication is actually up there in that sort of top 5, and something that we work very hard with students on. And the theme of today is looking at how extracurricular non-academic activities can really help and develop your communication skills along with other soft skills. But Jess, what would you say are great ways that students can help showcase and develop their communication skills?
Yeah, so I think this is a really important one, and I think it's important to say communication is your speaking, how you articulate yourself, but also your listening skills comes into communication, and this can be developed in so many ways throughout your time at university. So it could be that you volunteer in your spare time, or you get involved in the student ambassador program at your university. So you're talking to prospective students, you're talking to parents, because communicating with people from various different levels is going to be really important when you start that role in your company. You're not just going to be communicating with your peers, but actually just practicing putting your hand up in a lecture can or speaking in a meeting is, it can be very daunting. We're all aware of that. When you first start your job, doing something like that can be scary. So just pushing yourself to make an effort to communicate in those university environments will really emphasize that. But there are numerous ways. So societies, any kind of opportunity where you can do a bit of work experience is going to be fantastic for developing your communication skills.
Yeah, and Jess, that's great advice. I remember when we had our first Teams meeting 2 years ago, and we both said, didn't we, that we weren't used to talking from the medium of a computer screen.
Exactly.
And we found it hard, didn't we? We both sort of said this is strange.
Exactly. It's another level, being on Zoom and being on Teams to communicating with in person. So there's 2 different kind of aspects that you need to get used to there. So yeah, that's a good point, Jamie. Communicating via Zoom and Teams is something else, is another kind of kettle of fish to get used to as well.
Yeah, and I think what we've probably realised from doing this in our sort of roles as sort of careers and HR professionals is that practice really does make perfect. Yeah, so the more you practice these communication opportunities, and Jess, that was great advice. Just little things like when you're sat there and you might have the answer to a question in a situation, volunteer the answer. Yeah. Now, in terms of work situations, would you say there's any sort of ways that you could sort of display that you have developed your soft skills from a sort of collaboration perspective, from maybe like a part-time kind of role or being part of society? What kind of collaboration examples would you suggest students could put forward, Jess?
So collaboration, again, really important. It's your basic team working skills. So it could be that you've had a part-time job in the local supermarket and you've been working as part of a team. Maybe you've been responsible for kind of complaints or dealing with customer queries, but one day you've been, somebody else has been responsible for something else, and how you kind of decide who's doing what. So it could be part-time work. It could be that one example is that Jamie and I have worked on a competition, every year, where enterprise come in, they give a business problem to the students, and the students work as teams of 5. They may not have met each other previously, so in that short hour, they've got to get to know each other, work out each other's strengths, collaborate and decide who's going to be doing what, and then present back to Jamie. So again, putting yourself in those sorts of situations where you are joining groups. It could be something as simple as joining a group beach clean as well. So doing a volunteer experience where you're just joining a group of people that you've never met before. And then, you know, it's not, you know, as maybe as intense as in that workplace, but you are practicing getting to know new people, you know, making conversation and building relationships, which I think is a really, really important part of collaboration as well.
Yeah, Jess, and that's really great advice. And I think then the etiquette and professionalism pieces kind of follow on from there, because when you start communicating and being part of extracurricular teams and societies, you then sort of learn how to kind of get to know new people, and that's where the etiquette comes in.
Definitely.
And we had a discussion offline, Jess, about the professionalism piece from a soft skills standpoint, and I thought you gave a really interesting insight and quite a unique one. So would you like to sort of share that, Jess?
Yeah, I think in a lot of universities we have kind of internal internships, but also external. So if you can do some sort of work experience, whether that's in your university, whether that's, you know, outside with a small SME, then take that opportunity, because you will really start to build that professionalism, learn to write, you know, professional emails and learn about kind of office etiquette generally. So find out if your university has funding for internships, you know, reach out to local companies and ask about work experience opportunities. And again, that will really, really start to build your professionalism.
Yeah, no, and we've seen that. I work very closely with Jess and her colleagues at the University of Swansea, and we have lots of placement students that do 12-month placements with Enterprise.
Yeah.
And what we always say is when they kind of leave the university as that sort of just finished the first year student sort of situation, and when they come back after the 12-month placement, they're a different person.
Yeah,
confident. Yeah, it's just so great to see. No, brilliant. So we've identified the soft skills, and we've given you some examples of how to perhaps showcase them. But I think it's really important to look at sort of future-proofing your kind of yourself, because obviously we're looking at this from a developmental standpoint. So the World Economic Forum ran a survey of numerous businesses and companies from small, medium through to large across the global sort of spectrum. And these were the top 5 skills which employers believe will be desirable in 2025. So looking forward into the future. Sounds like a long way away, 2025, but it's actually not. And interestingly, if you look at the top 5 skills, these really are soft skills. Analytical thinking and innovation, active learning, thinking about learning strategies, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis. Now, I hear you say at the other side of the Zoom workspace, but I've not done any of these. I don't know how I can show complex problem solving. I'm just finishing university. I've had part-time jobs. I've not necessarily been in situations to showcase this or demonstrate this. But I've got news for you. You probably have. And again, myself and Jess were talking about this offline in another session. And it's amazing when you actually speak to students and strip it back and actually work out what experiences they've had or what you've had, you actually find you've actually got a lot of the elements in your CV, in your kind of repertoire. So is there any examples from the sort of 5 on the screen, the 4 on the screen, Jess, that you could maybe suggest that students could showcase or identify from their sort of skill sets that they probably possess now?
Yeah, I think, like you say, Jamie, it's really important to kind of go and speak to maybe a careers professional, because it may be that you've done your part-time work, but you can't pick out the key amazing skills that you most probably have developed. So I was speaking to a student yesterday, and she said she had a part-time job at Sainsbury's when she started university, and it was very often the case that there were supply chain issues, so maybe some of the products hadn't been delivered. So she was at that front line of dealing with those customer complaints and dealing with those, you know, customers who weren't quite happy that, you know, what they wanted wasn't wasn't there. So she had to, you know, solve those problems and overcome those issues and actually come up with solutions so that the customer, you know, could go away with a good experience still. So that might seem like a straightforward thing that you're dealing with. It could be that you're working at McDonald's and there are massive queues, or I think you said, Jamie, yesterday, maybe your manager hadn't turned up in a, you know, in a part-time job. Like, how are you actually going to take the lead in that situation, and how are you going to be innovative in you know, managing what's going on and dealing with the customers while still, you know, keeping calm? I think that's the main thing as well with a lot of these types of situations. So it is really important to, you know, value the work that you've done, whether it is relevant to the job that you're applying for. And you know, that could be extracurricular activities as well. You might have been captain of a sports team or something like that throughout your time in school, where again, you've had to do critical thinking, you've had to analyze the team and the situation. So you always are learning through any experience that you are doing, whether it's kind of extracurricular or academic. So make sure you are selling that value to employers that you speak to.
Well, Jess, I literally could not have put it any better. I think you've just ticked off the top 4 from the top 10 in that one sort of shared anecdotal sort of tale. And it's so interesting because the examples you just given there, the complex problem solving, the critical thinking, the active learning on the job, figuring out how to do something as you sort of go. Now, all those examples Jess gave about working at perhaps McDonald's, a coffee shop, in a supermarket, you will have done these things. So it's just about really thinking about, okay, so how can I show a future employer that I have these skills? Now, we've got some top tips to help you with that, and this is all about self-reflection. So we're going to move on to the next slide. So self-reflection is all about reflecting on your skill set. Now, if I asked you today to reflect on your hard skill set, let's think back to that second slide. That's quite easy to do. Okay, so I've got a degree in X, Y, or Z. I've got A levels. I've got some extra qualifications, maybe in Excel. I've done some extra qualifications in the sports that I particularly enjoy. They're kind of hard. That's your hard skill set sort of ticked off. So in terms of reflecting on that, it's actually quite easy. But when we ask people to reflect on their soft skill set, it's a lot harder. So we've got some top tips for you. And one thing I'd like to share with you again, the ISC, Institute of Student Employers, did a student development survey last year. And what they did was they went out to employers to find out the skills that they felt graduates were lacking. And the top 3 skills were resilience, managing up, and leadership. And I just thought it was really interesting that there's a feeling that resilience was lacking from the recent cohort and graduate sort of influx. When you think what we've been through, we've all been through such a difficult time. So sort of showcasing the fact we are resilient is actually easier than you think. Talking about what you achieved during lockdown, the things you learned. Did you learn how to bake banana bread or do some amazing TikTok videos during lockdown? It's all these experiences that are okay to share as part of your sort of learning journey. So what we want to sort of look at now is, how do you self-reflect? So the first thing you have to do is start with you and ask yourself, what am I good at? And that's really important. Now, Jess, when you ask students what they're good at, how often, how easily do they respond with that question?
With difficulty. I think for a lot of people, that's a really, really difficult question. And I think a bit of advice around that is actually speaking to the people closest to you. So your friends, your family, the people that actually are your supporters. So, you know, if you are struggling to think, actually, where have I done well? What am I good at? Have those conversations. And it's very likely that your friends will say, oh, you're amazing at that. Or, you know, you do really well in that. And you can be like, am I? But actually, you know, deep down, you know, but it just reinforces that those kind of skills that you have.
And I think you're right, Jess, because often we kind of had this perception of ourselves, but actually how other people perceive us, somewhere in the middle of that is kind of what our sort of personal brand represents in terms of our sort of strengths. And I think once people, you've helped use those sort of supporters around you to identify your strengths, it makes it easier to identify your areas of opportunity. because then you can then think, well, actually, it's been said that I'm very sort of very organized, very methodical, but do I need to be a little bit more creative perhaps and take more risks? And that's just an example there. So again, the next point we always sort of encourage people to do is look at what do you want to achieve. So if you want to achieve securing a placement, or you want to be a better communicator. Now, so let's just say you want to, okay, so I'd like to be a better communicator. So if that's what you want to achieve, then you need to think, okay, so what extracurricular activities can I do to help me be a better communicator? And we spoke about some great examples, and we're going to speak about some on the next slide. So again, think also about what makes you happy at work or at university, because those things that make you happy are often your strengths. So if you're happy when you're talking in a large group, or if you're happy when you're talking one-to-one, it might be that you're happy talking one-to-one, but you might need to work on talking in a larger group, or it might be vice versa. You might like working independently. If that makes you happy, perhaps working in a collaborative situation as part of a wider group, again, might be an area of opportunity. So by doing self-reflection, it really helps you look at what you need to work on. And the last one is, what specialist skills do I have? Now, the specialist skills, again, sometimes lean towards those hard skills versus the soft skills. However, you might have some examples where you've really managed to persuade somebody about a situation, or you've managed to use your sort of power of communication to influence a situation at work or in society. And that shows great leadership and persuasion skills. So again, just by stripping back yourself, looking at who you are and what you represent can really help. And remember, what you represent is brilliant, because you by definition are you, and you are unique. No one else is like you out there. And it's about bringing yourself to life. So let's move on to the next slide. So where are your opportunities? So Jess, I'm going to sort of hand this section not fully over to you, but I'd like you to really come in here, because I know you talk a lot to students around these topics. So we've identified some of the things you can do within this, but how would you advise people to bring those examples to life in a sort of interview situation, or just in that sort of thoughtful process of applying for a job?
Brilliant. Yeah, so we've got some lovely examples on the screen here. So I think they are quite straightforward. Hopefully they are all opportunities that you can get involved with, like as soon as you start university. And I would encourage you to get involved with things in your first year, especially if you can. But then, as Jamie said, it is how you sell these, how you articulate these. So kind of referring back to the last slide, constant reflection is really important, and maybe creating some sort of SWOT analysis of yourself, like, thinking about the opportunities that you want to get involved in. So in order to sell these, it's really pinpointing the skills and the value that you've added, the impact that you have made through each of these kind of activities. So thinking, actually, did I go to a meeting where I was a student representative for my course, where I took feedback from the rest of my class, I gave that to the academics, and because of my amazing communication skills, they decided to change a process. So that shows, you have added value, or you've implemented a change. So making sure that you're selling this to employers in your applications, you're pinpointing your skills, and then, when you're doing your interviews, preparing those STAR technique examples. So again, maybe keeping a note so that you're able to look back at, when you were a project lead in a charity project, or maybe you were president of the baking society or the surfing society, being part of the student union, making sure, maybe being on in a position of responsibility there. So there's so kind of much responsibility involved in all of these aspects. They're not just kind of alongside my course, that it's a small thing I'm doing. Really make sure that you're building those up, thinking about the value that you've added, thinking about the skills that you developed, and then practice talking about them, practice telling stories about what you've done to your friends, again, to the careers team. And then that will come across really, really well in your applications and your interviews. And an employer usually loves to see a proactive individual, and all of this stuff shows that you are a really proactive person.
That sounds amazing, Jess. And that there's a few key words that I've picked up on that you've used a couple of times now, and you've spoken about selling yourself and really selling your experiences and your examples, and really sort of self-promoting all the things that we've just spoken about. And that really is the key. And I think by doing the self-evaluation and reflecting on your skill set and what you're good at, and then looking at the experiences you've had in life, be that work experience, be that society experience, be that hobbies, it really helps you and sets you up for the future. So yeah, no, that's just really great to hear it from a sort of a career standpoint. So we've kind of been on a bit of a sort of learning journey throughout this conversation, and I'm hoping that you've kind of taken from it that it's not as hard as you think to actually develop and showcase your soft skills. Soft skills, again, are those skills, those sort of personality sort of traits you can show, those social skills, and you can showcase them really and develop them by getting involved with lots of the things that we've kind of spoken about today. I'm just going to sort of wrap up the main presentation sort of bit with we've got some great resources available for you. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, ERAC Jobs /videos. There's some great content in there. There's some great videos, and there's our bite-sized series. And we're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Again, please like and follow us, and hopefully we can sort of share some great information and help you in the future. I've got a question in the chat, so I'm just going to read the question out, Jess, and then we can sort of answer it between us. What would you say that sales is a soft skill? Any ideas on how to develop my sales skills while at university? So I'd say sales skills probably would sit in that kind of soft skill sort of section, because it's communication. It's how to talk. It's how to sort of get ideas across, how to persuade people. So I think there's lots of ways you can develop your sort of sales skills whilst at university. I've got my ideas. Have you got any ideas, Jess, in terms of that?
Yeah, I think confidence and communication is the main thing with sales. So obviously, if you can get work experience in that area, that would be ideal. But generally, I think having positions of responsibility where you are influencing, you are negotiating, and those are kind of skills that will embed themselves in, a role as a student representative or being a president of a society. So having those positions where you are a key decision maker and you are, able to communicate will naturally develop those skills in an extracurricular context.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jess. And I think one of the you mentioned it earlier, and I think one of the key things to develop your skill sets is actually being able to answer the question, what am I good at? So sit down and practice. Ask yourself the question, what am I good at? And then answer the question, verbalize what you are good at, because then when you actually start selling your abilities, it really helps you sort of self-promote, and that self-promotion can give you confidence, but B, the ability to talk in a persuasive fashion about your traits and your characteristics. And I think we both probably have commented in the past, Jess, through various activities that we've run, that students' confidence grows and builds like the more they get involved with these extracurricular activities. I think that really is the key, is that sort of repetition, and practice does make perfect. So practicing talking about yourself. Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Push yourself out of your comfort zone slightly, and you will have done that in the past. So think about when you've done it before, and taking those small steps will just slowly build confidence. You'll look back in your final year and think, wow, how far I've come, since that first day. So yeah, exactly what you said, Jamie. It definitely does.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, we're coming up to the half-hour mark now, so I'd just like to thank you so much, Jess, for taking your time out your busy day to come and talk to myself. And I look forward to working with you in the future. And thank you to everyone that tuned in. Again, we're running these sessions, and they will continue to run. And would really like to sort of encourage you to follow our channels and keep up to date with all the things that Enterprise are posting. So thank you very much, And that ends the Enterprise Bite Size webinar session for today. Thank you.